Many people regard you as a personification of Ubuntu. What do you understand Ubuntu to be?
In the old days when we were young, a traveler through a country would stop at a village and he didn't have to ask for food or for water. Once he stops, the people give him food, entertain him. That is one aspect of Ubuntu, but it will have various aspects. Ubuntu does not mean that people should not enrich themselves. The question, therefore, is, are you going to do so in order to enable the community around you to be able to improve? These are the important things in life. And if one can do that, you have done something very important which will be appreciated.
The open source report on the 4th of August 2019 from WBRN Radio and on the Boston Red Network. As we normally do, we partner with Cranston Software. This is MA here. And we'll look at the state of open source. We'll spend some time on Tor and some implications involved there with the government. As most people know, it came out of the Navy. I remember when we used to have to get a release from the Central Intelligence Service to download it. That was before it was incorporated in the kernel. Anyway, nonetheless, actually, sorry about that. It was not Tor. It was the kernel's encryption there we used to have to download. I was ahead of myself there. And we'll look at NOMI and KDE, some things they're doing, some things Microsoft and their Xer is venturing into. Incidentally, next week, Black Hat. We used to go to Black Hat, but then Black Hat became more and more a convention for various intelligence services. They were there. It would be the NSA, the CIA, Naval Intelligence, and you name it. They all appear at Black Hat. And now I heard an interview with a person that was talking about it and some of the implications of what's going on, tying it in to the hack of Capital One. But beyond that hack was not malicious. That was basically a hack that the person known as Erratic did to demonstrate that it could be done. Now, part of the problem we have with the Capital Ones of the world, these are large corporations. They have a lot of legacy systems involved, and those legacy systems are proprietary. And this is a very good point to bring up, that these companies should move their system to open source implementations. Now, such things as blockchain. Blockchain is open source, and they were not. They were still messing around trying to mix and match their old legacy systems, mainframes we're talking about, with new extensions. They had evidently integrated some things to the Amazon services. The hack had nothing to do with Amazon services. The person known as Erratic did, in fact, work for Amazon at one time, no longer there. We'll hear more about that. But as we usually do, the stable kernel is at 5.2.5. That is the stable kernel, and there's also an R2 release of 5.3 out there. And there's also another long-term kernel out there as 5.1.21. We are using on several systems here where we have other than Slackware. Our Slackware server is down at the moment, but it will, as they say, return. So we have been using Ubuntu, one of their systems, and on it, I believe they're at 5.1.21 or somewhere in that vicinity there. So they have not went to the 5.2.5. The thing to remember here is to keep your kernels updated, and also the libraries. The libraries are very important. Now, they do, in fact, update the libraries, so we don't need to be overly concerned about that particular situation, because it is out there. And let's move on to some of these lighter things, as we would say here. And NOMI and KDE, we've always favored NOMI. On the Slackware system, of course, they use KDE. And this is from ZDNet here. We've been working on doing this. Now, this is actually on August the 1st. Fragmentation has long been a problem for Linux desktop. Now the two biggest open source desktop foundations are joining a force, and this is a good thing here. The Linux desktop has its fans. I've been using it for over 20 years. We used it exclusively in the 90s. We ran nothing but Linux desktops. There are some instances we had to use a Windows implementation, and that's because of some of the software we were running. An example would be at Spreaker. They have a program that you use, and it can only be executed using a Windows type system or in a container, and you can use Wine and some other things to do that depending on the resources on your system. So that is one of the big problems going on, but it's never been a mass market favor, in part that's because, as Olinus says, a fragmentation of different vendors has held a desktop back. There's no doubt about that. Now a major step forward. The NOMI Foundation and KDE have agreed to work together, coming together to sponsor the Linux App Summit that will be on in Barcelona from February 12th through 15th, 2019. This is the first time the two rival groups have come together. It has been a decade since they joined forces to run a conference together, with the organization eager to bring their communities together, and that should have happened a long time ago. It is their hope by working together at the LAS, they can drive the growth of the Linux desktop by encouraging the creation of quality applications, seeking opportunity for compensation from FOSS developers, and fostering a vibrant market for the Linux operating system. The executive over at NOMI, Neil McGovern, represents one of many steps towards a thriving desktop ecosystem by partnering with KDE. We show the desire to build a kind of application ecosystem that demonstrates that open source, libre, or free software are important technology and organizations we build to achieve that that is viable and necessary. And from KDE, Mr. Gomez, Alex Gomez, agrees, over the years we have built great solutions that millions of people around the world use. It has been when we work together that we have managed to become bigger than the sum of parts. Together with NOMI, counting with the collaboration of many distributions and application developers, we have an opportunity to work side by side, share our perspectives here. Paul Brown, a KDE communications specialist, added, the desktop war is not really a thing anymore. It's more of a sense to work together and to pool resources. It certainly does. As Linus Torvald wish, we are better at having a standardized desktop than going across distributions. We may be the Linux desktop vendors and developers best chance in years of coming together to create a single unified desktop that appeal to more than just hardcore, as they call it, Linux users. That is the idea there. And one of the things that has brought much of this about is the revolution of or evolution of smartphone technology. Smartphones, generally speaking, most smartphones run on Android, which is not exactly open, but it does have a Linux kernel, at least for now, from the Google people there. So that in itself does matter. And what will the Google developers do next? Well, they'll go into Fuchsia, and we'll in our broadcast we'll talk about if any updates to Fuchsia and where it will go. That will be a new operating system from Google / Alphabet / Google, period. And we'll see what is going on with them. No doubt whatever Google does that Google does not do with their operating system and the Chromium operating system on the pads, or whatever you want to call them, or Chromebooks. And this is also one of the things that's happening now with 5G coming out. Very powerful portable computing in form of smartphone, and they even have folding tablets coming out from Samsung. Hadn't worked out as well, but we're going to see more and more of the quote-unquote desktop standard, where we'd be on pads or be on the smartphones with their various applications. Now, the application situation is a little bit different in that when you install these applications that come from various so-called app stores, you have no control at all over what they do. That what the developer does, the developer does. So this is the reason we favor the desktop environment is the best environment. Now, a lot of Linux developers admittingly work on Apple desktop notebook products because of design now, but the Apple notebook is nothing more than a commoditized elements from the Intel. They now use the Intel processor. They use NVIDIA cards, and you can't swap those out. This is one reason I've always preferred to work on workstations as much as possible, that we can handcraft what is going on. Also, we use AMD processors, and we've talked about that in previous installments. And of course, AMD does make laptops. They need to catch up there in terms of getting their processors upgraded, period. We'll see more and more of that. Here, one of the looking at here, value game-friendly changes to the Linux kernel. Well, the Linux kernels are getting faster and faster and larger and larger. Now, I'm just looking at a little thing here about Red Hat dominates enterprise Linux. No doubt about that. Tomorrow it wants to rule the cloud. Don't bet against it. Well, there are a lot of vendors out there that want to rule, quote unquote, the cloud. Now, IBM, because since they purchased Red Hat, they are out there. Period. And a little note here: Linus Torvald prepares to wave goodbye to Linux floppy drives. Well, I didn't know they still had those, but as everyone else has went to the stick, they have remained with some of the older hardware. Now, the older hardware is not necessarily out of it. I was watching a presentation at the Electronic Engineers blog. That is Dave Jones. You can look up Dave Jones out of Sydney, Australia, and he was talking about some of the diagnostic tools and using some of the older technologies. If you go to our Twitter feed, hopefully it is there. Now this is from Microsoft Azure. Announces dedicated hosts and new service, and this is this whole thing about services that could run Linux and Windows VMs on a single tenant server. And I need just to look. This is also on August the 1st, so it is announced a preview of a new Azure service called Azure Dedicated Host. The new service will allow organizations, Linux and Windows VMs on a single-tenant physical server that will help the enterprise in meeting corporate compliance and regulatory requirements there. But this involves some of the Microsoft products, and you're getting into Windows Server, LQ Server, those kinds of things there, and licensing. Unlike regular Azure VMs that you rent from Azure, the dedicated host will allow you to control the underlying hardware interface, processor capabilities. Period. That is a little bit different there where they are going with this. That is Microsoft, and evidently I'm looking at this while we are here. Windows 10 installer preview there. I guess that's release 18950. Anyway, some of their even an open source Windows calculator. The trick is here that you will see more and more integrated open source things running on Microsoft. Now, antivirus on Microsoft Edge, Chromium is responsible for add-ons. Anyway. You're getting into more and more problems anytime that you are forced to deal with Microsoft in any of their products. We use Skype, which is controlled by Microsoft, and it's, I guess you'd say, controlled headaches, no doubt about that. Let me just move around here a little bit, and we'll come back to Krebs on security, but we'll first go to Tor. Hackers breach Cytec. The hacked company was working on a research project for the FSB. This is Russian intelligence service back in July. Now, a little bit different situation, that they were actually, hackers have breached Cytec, a contractor for the FSB, that is the Russian National Intelligence Service, from where they stole information about internal projects the company was working on behalf, including anonymizing Tor traffic. Now, much has been talked about Tor. The breach took place last week on July 13th, when a group of hackers going by the name of OV1RU $ hacked into the Cytec Active directory server, from where they gained access to the company's entire IT network, including a JIR instance. Now, it'd be interesting, they had Active Directory. That was the problem to begin with. They stole 7.5 terabytes of data from the contractor's work system. They defaced the company's web service with a Yoba face popular with Russian users, that stands for trolling. Hackers posted screenshots of the company's server on Twitter and later shared the stolen data with Digital Revolution, another hacking group. Last year breached Quantum, another contractor. The second hack group shared stolen files in great detail on their Twitter account. That was on July 18th. So, and some of it is here. per different reports in the media files indicated that had worked since 2009 on a multitude of projects, for the FSA Unit 71330 and for fellow contractors, Quantum there, and some of the things that they worked on, project collecting data about social users on Facebook, not MySpace anymore, but linked them there. Noticias S for demonetizing tour traffic with the help of rogue tour servers. Reward a project to covertly penetrate P2P networks like the one used for torrents, and mentor a project to monitor and search email communication on servers of Russian companies. Hope a project to investigate the topology of Russian internet and how it connects to other countries' networks. And tax-free, a project for creating a closed intranet to store the information of highly sensitive state figures, judges, and local administrators. BBC Russia, who received a full trove of the documents, claim there were other older projects there. eDonkey, Open FT, that is the enterprise file transfer system. They were all posted on the Digital Revolution Twitter account. Some projects came to be, were tested. Noticias S, the only one for the anonymizing tour traffic. The BBC pointed out that work on Noticias S started in 2012. 2 years later, in 2014, academics from Karlstad University in Sweden published a paper detailing the use of hostile tour exit nodes that were attempts to decrypt tour traffic. The researchers identified 25 malicious servers, 18 of which were located in the Russian Federation. That was running a tour version not .2.2.37, the same one detail of leaked files. Early this year, Russia ran tests in which it disconnected a national segment from the rest of the internet. The SciTech, the hacked company, has taken down its website and refused media inquiries. I would imagine so. They have had problems. Hackers also steals data. Millions of Bulgarians, email to local media. The database was hacked in Bulgaria. Hackers breached 62 U.S. colleges by exploiting a EPRP vulnerability. Slack reset passwords for 1% of its users because of a hack in 2015. Pale Moon said hackers added malware to its older browser version. I have never used that. Hackers assaulted Salt Lab mobile carriers open to network shutdown, and 90% of data breaches in the U.S. occurred in New York and California. Now, this is some of their coverage that they did on these various situations. We'll see if we can get one of these papers to pinch as we move along. And this is just showing it actually in Russian here. So we'll move along here. Several instances where this material became available. I believe this is, you of course always take this a grain of salt. Forbes with the same story from the BBC, but you have to understand Zach Dorfman, cyber security, Russia's secret intelligence agents hacked large data breached in history. And no doubt about that. We talked about this 7.5 terabytes. That's a lot of data. And as far as we know, the Tor browser has not been de-anonymized there. Received digital link site where the initial breach to documents. Well, that was 2 months ago as part of it. Digital has targeted them before. the BBC, we talked about BBC Russia breaking of that particular story. The BBC claimed no actual state secrets were exposed, and we talked also about the projects and who they had, this SciTech had contracted with a military unit known as 71330. And many people, incidentally, have worked on de-anonymizing the Tor browser, including the National Intelligence Service in the U.S., the CIA. All those people have worked on it, period. Now, preparation activities splitting off a Russian internet. They talked about that. V.I. Putin signed the law provision for stable operation of Rusnet, that's the Russian internet, in case it was disconnected from a global service. The Lord sets in train plans for alternative domain system DNS for Russia in the event that it's disconnected from the World Wide Web. DNS is very, very important, and one has to pay attention to it. There's nothing newsworthy in the project exposed. Everything was known or expected. Contractors remain a weak link in the chain, no doubt, for intelligence services. And a former NSA contractor was jailed in the U.S. for stealing secrets only 2 decades. The fallout from Edward Snowden continues today. The digital revolution, passed the information to journalists without anything being added to, removed, or changed. And that was where they ended up there. And let me just, I think we're not going to get that. We're now going to the situation with Capital One. And we need to get there. And this is one of the things of doing a live program, is sometimes finding things that we need to find. And where did it go? Well, somewhere around here. We may need to take a station break here. We'll take a station break. WBRN Radio, and we're on station break for a moment here. Okay. This is Cribs on Security, the former reporter from the Washington Post. Here, he is usually on top of things, and we'll look at his. The title of his article here is What We Learned from the Capital One's Hack. On Monday, a former Amazon worker was arrested and charged with stealing more than 100 million customer applications for credit from Capital One. Since then, there's been much speculation the breach was perhaps the result of a previously unknown zero-day flaw or an inside or hack in which the accuser took advantage of access surreptitiously obtained from her former employer. New information indicates the method she deployed had been well understood for years. What follows is based on interviews with almost a dozen security experts, including one who is privy to details about the ongoing breach investigation, because this incident deals with somewhat jargon-laced and esoteric concepts. Much of what is described below has been dramatically simplified. Someone seeking more technical information of basic concepts referred here should explore some of the many links included in the story. Now, according to the source of direct knowledge, the problem stems in part from misconfigured, and this is usually what Apple open source web application firewall that Capital One was using as part of its operations hosted in the cloud in Amazon Web Services, known as Mode Security. This FAS is deployed along with open source Apache Web Server to provide protection against several classes of vulnerabilities that attackers most commonly use to compromise security of web-based applications. The misconfiguring of the FAS allowed the intruder to trick the firewall into relaying requests to a keyback resource on the back-end resource on the AWS platform. This resource, known as the metadata service, is responsible for handing out temporary information to cloud servers, including current credentials sent from a security service to access any resource in the cloud in which that server has access. In AWS, exactly what these credentials can be used hinges on the permissions assigned to the resource that is required for them. In Capital One's case, the misconfigured WAF, for whatever reason, was assigned too many permissions, i.e. that was allowed to list all the files in a bucket of data and to read the contents of each file. This type of vulnerability exploited by the intruder in Capital One's hack is a well-known method called server-side request forgery, SSRF attack, in which the server, in this case Cap One's WAF, could be tricked into running commands that should have never been permitted to run, including those allowed to talk to the metadata service. Evan Johnson, and he is the manager of product security at Cloud Flare, recently penned an essay, penned an easily digestible column on a Capital One's hack and the challenges of detecting and blocking SSRF attacks targeting cloud services. Johnson said it's worth noting that the SSRF attacks are not among the dozen or so attack methods for which detection rules are shipped by default. The SSRF has become the most serious vulnerability facing organizations that use public clouds. The impact of SSR is being worsened by the offering of public clouds, and major players like AWS are not doing anything to fix it. The problem is common, well known, but hard to prevent, and doesn't have any migration built into the AFS platform. Johnson said, addressing the shortcomings by including extra identification information at the requests sent to the metadata service, as Google has already done with cloud hosting platform. He also acknowledges that doing so could break a lot of backward compatibility within AWS. There's a lot of specialized knowledge that comes with operating a service with AWS, and to someone without specialized knowledge are not something that would show up on any critical configuration guide. That's what he said. You have to learn how EC2 works, understanding Amazon's identity and access management as system, and how to authenticate with other services. A lot of people using AWS will interface with dozens of AWS services and write software that orchestrates and automates new services. But in the end, people really learn into AWS a ton, and with that comes a lot of specialized knowledge that is hard to learn and hard to get right. In a statement to Cribs on security, Amazon said it was inaccurate to argue that the Capital One's breach was caused by AWS IAM, the instant metadata service, in any way. The intrusion was caused by a misconfigured web application firewall and not the underlying infrastructure or location of the infrastructure. The statement read, AWS is constantly delivering services and functionality to anticipate new threats at scale and offering more security capabilities and layers than customers can find anywhere else, including their own data centers, which broadly used, properly configured, and monitored, offering unmatched security, a track record of customers for over 13 years. Amazon points to several mostly a la carte services: Access Advisor, Guard Duty, and AWS WAF. And another one here, William Bingstrom, former senior security person at Netflix, wrote a series of blogs last year on how Netflix built its own system for detecting and preventing credential compromise in AWS. Interesting, Bingstrom was hired roughly 2 months ago to direct cloud security for Capital One. My guess is Capital One now wishes they had managed to lure him away sooner. So this is the story of Paige Thompson. On July 21st, FBI agents arrested Paige Thompson on suspicion of downloading 30 gigabytes of Capital One credit applications from a rented cloud data service. Capital One said that the incident affected 100 million people, and that just explains to one what is 30 gigabytes of data. The data include approximately 140,000 Social Security numbers, approximately 80,000 bank account numbers on U.S. consumers, roughly 1 million social insurance numbers from Canadian credit cards. Importantly, no credit card numbers, login credentials were compromised, and over 99% of the Social Security numbers were not compromised, according to Capital One. The largest category of information access was information on consumers, small businesses, as the time they applied for one of many Capital One cards. Now, this would go back to 2005 to 2019. Capital One roughly collects at the time it receives credit card applications, including names, addresses, zip codes, postal codes, phone numbers, email addresses. That's quite a bit right there. The complaint doesn't explicitly name the cloud hosting provider for which, but everybody knows who they are. The resume available on GitHub here reveals Thompson' most recent employer was Amazon Inc. For investigation review, Thompson used the nickname Erratic on Twitter, and she spoke openly over several months about finding huge data stores intended to be secured. And this is some of on June 16th. Then I launched an instance into their VPC with access to Aurora and attached the correct security profile. Dump your MySQL to local 32T terabyte storage. Encryption, and perhaps using customer's gateway and so forth, and on overstock proxy, depending on how lucky I'm feeling. This is what Erratic said. And then I hacked into ES2 instance, assuming roles of their IM instance, and took over the account and corrupt SSM, deploying my backdoor mirror, their S3 bucket, and the snapshots are there. And this is what you did. I will append this. According to the FBI, Thompson used a public meetup group under the same alias, where she invited others to join a Slack channel named Net Kriva Communications, and was able to join the open Slack channel that scripts on communication Monday evening and review many months of postings apparently made by Erratic of her personal life, interests, and so forth online. And Erratic is a 27th of June comment there. So in other words, she put it out there, and that was period. And we have another one here. This is no jail time for WannaCry hero. This is Marcus Hutchins, the accidental hero who helped arrest the spread of the global wannabe ransom breakout that was in 2017. British security enthusiasts enjoyed instant fame after the UK media revealed he'd registered and so-called a domain name that researchers later understood served as a hidden kill switch within the WannaCry, a fast-spreading virus there. In August of 2017, FBI arrested the then 22-year-old Hutchins on a suspicion of spreading Nomos banking Trojan and related malware. A tool called UPass-Kit. Hutchins was released shortly after his arrest, but ordered to remain in the States on September 17th. Cubrimos Security published research which strongly suggested Hutchins' dozens of alter egos online had a fairly lengthy history of developing and stealing of various malware tools and services. In April of 2019, he pled guilty to a criminal charge of conspiracy to making, selling, and advertising illegal wiretapping devices. Anyway, effectively, he was served to time served. Much has been written about the need to further secure our elections, from ensuring the integrity of voting machines to combating fake news. Not sure where this is going. California has a civil grand jury service designed to serve as an independent oversight of local government functions. On Wednesday, a grand jury from San Mateo County in Northern California released a report which envisions the havoc that might be in the election process. If malicious hackers were able to hijack social media and email accounts. Imagine that a hacker hijacks one of the county's official social media accounts. Anyway, San Mateo County's Office of Assessor, County Clerk and Recorder, and elections responsible for carrying out the elections. It sends election information to 43,000 registered voters. So what would happen there? Period. And this is on July 19th. I guess we'll throw this in. Nearly 3 dozen journalists, as a broad range of major publications, have been targeted by a far-right group that maintains a deep web, and this kind of coincides with some of the database listing of personal information of people who threaten their views. This group specializes in encouraging others to harass and target there are, and claims responsibility for dozens of bomb threats, etc., etc. Dobin, the site is called Dobin, which hosts addresses, phone numbers, often known IP addresses, social security numbers, and other data. The specific number of entries of 400 plus. Dobin, I suppose to pronounce it, are for journalists 32 last count in yours truly, the creator of Dopespin, I guess Doxbin, have been targeting everyone from federal judges to executives of major corporations. At least 2 judges listed there have been swatted in the last 6 months, including Leonard Pitts Jr., I don't know who he was, and in some cases reporters from a CNN, Politico, ProPublica there. Many of those listed on the site soon find themselves on the receiving end of extended threats and harassments. Kerry Holtzman, a computer technician who runs a YouTube channel on repair, oh yeah, I remember him, and computers, was swatted in January. At the same time, his personal information showed up on, and I've listened to his on Dupespin. Most recently, it's tormenting started calling his mobile phone at all hours of the night, threatening to hire a hitman to kill him. They even promised to have drugs ordered off of the dark web and sent to his home as part of a plan to get him arrested for drug possession. They said they were going to send 3 grams of cocaine. Holtzman told Cribs on security. Sure enough, earlier this month, a small vial of white powder arrived via the U.S. Post Service. He didn't open it, but instead handed it over to the local police for testing. That's unfortunate. That happened to Kerry Holtzman. I'm not sure why he was targeted, because he does basically computer repair, and why he was swatted, no idea at all there on that one. And this is July 18th. We haven't been here in a while, so 3 Big three credit bureaus, Equifax was reported agreed to pay at least $650,000, stemming from the 2017 breach of roughly 148 million Americans. And this is part of the thing. This is Equifax required to spend up to $425 million helping consumers. As of yet, the disclosed amount is not out here. There have been some things that talked about this settlement up to, I think, $125, which you want. Oh, here we go. Free credit monitoring. If you don't want to take advantage of the monitoring, you can opt instead of the $125 cash payments. You can't get both. In a nutshell, are eligible to apply for one of these remedies. Reimbursement for the time you spend remedying the identity theft is capped at 20 hours at $25 per hour. How do I take advantage of these? Well, you have to sign up with the FTC, and we'll just put this on. The site is the eligibility site is now active. The link here, and what you call 1-833-759-2982. Again, 1-833-759-2982 for more information. So Crib Zone Security called it, and basically they said they needed to have some basic information about me to process. He said they needed my name, address, phone number to process it. I gave them a number and a name, and after checking with someone, he came back and said the restoration service would be offered by Equifax, but the confirmation that affected consumers would still need to apply for it. He added EquifaxBreachSettlement.com. The site will soon include a feature that lets visitors check to see if they are eligible. And I guess we'll check on that. Anyway, we'll put this up as a part of our service on Equifax. I'm not sure if any money is there now, but you can check. But what this basically shows is that security is not what of these basic corporations is not what it should be, and it all points back to in the case of Capital One, misconfigured, literally a misconfigured application that caused all of this, and is the big problem within itself. So with this, we'll close out the open source report on the 4th of August 2019. This is MA at Cranston, and we'll software, and we're trying to be more up to date on these open source reports. We have been on the political channel with the debates and various other machinations. Also take this time to remember condolences to the people murdered in El Paso, Texas, and also in Dayton, Ohio, downtown Dayton, by these urban terrorists that opened fire on them and killed them. And we ask that people stay abreast of these activities. Beto O'Rourke, who is running for president, had some recommendations from his hometown of El Paso, Texas. On the political side, we'll see you on the Monday Morning Quarterback. That's Monday morning on WBRN and the Boston Red Network, which this is a part of it. And we'll keep you in tune with the various things that are happening. Also, we're on various internet radio channels, iHeartRadio. We're on that. We're also on Stitcher. We're on Google Podcasts. And you can also find us on YouTube, and we're doing some updating this summer with that, and we've kind of been preoccupied with some medical things that we've been processing with have a blockage that has to be satisfied an artery type blockage, not a heart condition within itself. Good day.